Well, I'm going to be talking about how the KPA spends donated funds. Um, and you might well think that in the last couple of years, because of COVID, this might be me that's coming in, but I'll carry on. Because of COVID, obviously, the senior members of the KPA have not been able to get to the various units. So we've been very dependent on the limited information that we get from our contacts within the units and the clinical staff, the senior nurses that we have good arrangements with. And I have to say that when you look at this list, you will actually see that we have been spending an awful lot of money, or let's say we've been granting benefits to patients who seriously need our help. Now, any of this money that has gone to patients, in fact, are for items that we pay. We never give the money direct to patients unless it is to those patients who have no money, are temporarily homeless, or have had their benefits withdrawn. That did happen a lot at the beginning of the benefits situation, happened a lot at the beginning of the COVID period, and we're still finding patients suffering for obvious reasons. Now, any of this help has to come either on a special KPA grant form that has to be presented by a senior member of the renal team, either a matron, a senior sister, or a doctor, and it has to be signed off by a senior person. And any money that the KPA spends also, if it's for a large amount, and I'll come on to some of those large amounts after this slide, that has to be cleared by and signed off by Sally Hamel. So we're very careful about how we agree to funds, and also every grant request has to have a majority vote from our 7 trustees, and it's very rare for there ever to be less than a vote of at least 6 to 1. Most of them are unanimous. As you can imagine, we're careful about making sure the patients really require the help. So you can see there that, apart from helping patients in trouble, we've been buying beds, we buy PD home equipment, we've paid for a couple of removals. I mean, there's an instance where one of the senior nurses sent us a request saying this patient has had a request for us to help with his removal, and he's got an estimate of £1,300. Cut the long story short, by the time we finished checking up on comparisons, and I'll give a free plug to Man with a Van, because that website is fantastic. It gives you options and information on the drivers. And we ended up paying about £250 for the removal charge, plus the driver and an additional man to help, because generally with these situations, the patient can't do it on their own. So everything that is bought, I would think everything on this list has been bought with us checking up on the prices, or if it's TVs, going to Curry's or PC World, if AO, whatever it is, to find the cheapest quote. We've provided seating in the Mary Rankin waiting area. There was a blind patient that needed a computer and software. We did the best possible deal there. Blood pressure monitors. Here's an example, iPads. There's recently been a kidney prem survey, which is all about finding out what patients think about their patient transport service. And to be able to do that successfully, and for patients to trust. We've had volunteers. We bought second-hand iPads. We bought 4 of them, and the volunteers in the different units were able to go individually to the patients and get them to fill in when the patients couldn't do it themselves, and so on. You've got ovens, fridge freezers, washing machine, a bed frame with an orthopedic mattress, mobile phone equipment for a blind young adult renal patient. As far as that's concerned, that really was just a pay-as-you-go phone, with nothing but £10 worth of calls in it, because the problem and why we bought that phone was that the unit was telling us this patient couldn't be contacted for coming in for his appointments, and this way guaranteed that he was contacted. So I hope you would realize we took that work very seriously. Let me move on if I can, and I can't. Okay. Okay, one of the best things, the most recent things that we've spent on is a hybrid internet for in-person meetings. So this room was being used for teaching, MDT meetings, and meetings such as renal planned with patients and staff interacting regarding research and clinical. I just wanted to show you the basis of the letter that Alan Salama wrote, and you can see there he wanted the KPA to donate for them to have a multidisciplinary seminar room on the 3rd floor, make it fit for purpose and allow them to have these hybrid internet meetings. They needed to install a new TV screen, a new soundbar, a computer, do some works to remove the current shelving, to facilitate the equipment. And he's attached a quote for the equipment. In total, it came to £7,000 with the extras of renovation and the computer and the new screen. So he was asking for £10,000. We were using a supplier that the Royal Free were used to using, and in these situations, we could only go to approved suppliers of equipment to the Royal Free. And the end story was that we paid, after negotiation, under £6,000. We are able to issue a VAT exemption form, so we don't have to pay VAT. I managed to persuade the hospital internally to do the renovation themselves and to find an existing computer. So you can see again, we don't just do what they want, we do our best to be able to find the best deal, to be able to use, had we spent that £10,000, in the end, we've got £4,000 to spend on other things. Here's another good example. We bought a couple of bladder scanners. The first one went to Tottenham, and I can show you there that, I can show you there that at the bottom, if you can see the part of the estimate, this scanner was in excess of £6,000 new. I'm still admitting people, so I'm glad to see people are still coming. I think it was about £6,200. We negotiated with the firm directly, and whilst the solution was that we were able to purchase a scanner that they called second-hand, but actually wasn't. It was legally a demo scanner, but all that had happened is that it'd been taken out of its packaging and the film protection covering had been taken away for photography. So we ended up paying £4,400 So again, the point is, everything we do, we try to negotiate. Now, I've got personal experience of how useful these bladder scanners can be, because on one of my stays in the Royal Free, I was on 10 East, and for my particular situation, they needed to scan my bladder, and the machine, they didn't have a working machine on the ward. And every time one of the doctors said, scan his bladder, it didn't happen for me for ages. And I'm waiting and waiting. What's going on? The senior nurse there, who I've known for years from her days as the senior nurse at Mary Rankin, Fiona Basilio, some of you may know her. I said to her, this is ridiculous. And she said to me, well, is there any way kidney patients can help us with this? Yes, of course, but you need to fill in a grant request form. She did that. I got another one, which was officially classed as a demo. It wasn't, but the rep removed all of the packaging for us, and we got it for £4,400. So 10 East now, on a second visit to 10 East, I got the pleasure of regularly having the scanner used on me. We've used some donated funds for these comfort chairs, which were specifically for patients after they'd come out of operations. You can see a gentleman there getting the use out of it. If you've ever been been on the ward, you will know there are comfy chairs. Sorry, my computer button is a little bit loose, like my brain. There are plenty of chairs around, but of course, sorry, this is because I'm admitting people, and Sally Amore is about to join us. But as you can see, these comfortable care chairs are fully reclinable, and that, we've been told by the physios on the ward, have been a fantastic advantage for patient care. We've always been supplying dispensers to ice dispensers to the units, and the ice dispensers have a lifetime usage that probably seems that they last about 5 or 6 years. They probably
dispenser donated funds mati.
Someone's talking and got their they aren't muted, so please mute yourself, please. So of course, this is something that our dialysis patients feel desperate for, having ice cubes during the hot weather. As an example of our good purchasing power, the company that quoted the Royal Free to supply and install one of these Scotsman dispensers for Tottenham quoted £4,400. I've got the proof of it. I purchased these for £2,500, including the installation. Nothing more to say. Here's another very useful item that we've spent our money on: weighing scales. First of all, we started off at Edgware, where a patient passed away and his community collected money. The patient was a rabbi. The members of the synagogue collected amount of money. The membership secretary said, what can we buy for this amount of money? And we found around that value these weighing scales, which are particularly useful because it means the patients in wheelchairs, as you can see, just wheel themselves straight in. We then asked who else might find this useful. Tottenham asked for one. Again, it was so useful, they had two. So, and these again, from memory, I think I saved about 20% on the purchase price of these weighing scales. This is just a quick question here. It's not a quick question, but it's to do with, this is someone who has written a sort of an intelligent question that's where he's telling us, thank you very much for everything that you do for the patients. He's read the 2019-20 accounts. So that was the first set of accounts. No, that was the second set of accounts that Jeremy was talking about. And it says, it looks as if we're in rude financial health, which in fact, it's actually true that the amount of money that we have or had at that time sitting in the bank was a decent amount, bearing in mind we're a small charity and we can't compare with the size of impact that the Royal Free Charity has. This person was asking whether or not we are meeting our objects if the amount that was in those accounts at the time, which was £130,000, was that the right thing to do? But of course, he's actually realized that the pandemic has disrupted and curbed the activities which might have benefited royal patients and their carers. Jeremy's already highlighted the fact that when you look at the last 2 years' accounts, things like anything that we do to get the patients out and about and communicate with each other, like our summer party, like our Christmas parties, any other events, and even the fact that when we were able to put on our committee meetings live, that people would come along and meet us. And it was quite a friendly situation. We couldn't do any of that. So all of those events, and also the things that were reasonably costly, like the NKF conference, where we paid for the regular members of our committee, which was something that many other KPAs didn't offer to their members. All of these things meant that the money was staying in the bank. This person was saying he's aware of collaboration involving several kidney charities and KPAs, which have resulted in vital research into the impact of COVID-19 on kidney patients. I'm wondering whether you would regard this as an acceptable use of KPA's charitable funds in future. Well, in fact, we do have a constitution, and I've just happened to lift it off a couple of the sections that in terms of our charitable objects, you can see in red that point C says we should be cooperating with and support other charities with similar purposes. Obviously, that all has to be relative to good reasons for whatever we'd be supporting. And down at the bottom, point J, which is absolute key, is that we should support kidney research at the Trust, which we really do. I've already talked about the work that we do with the patient group, working with Alan Salama and Ben Chaplin to review projects which will be beneficial. But quite separately from that, and prior to that group being formed, we've worked for probably all the time that I've been involved with the KPA, which is at least 20 years. We work closely with Andrew Davenport, who is one of the lead doctors in terms of research, and we have supported a number of his projects. And in particular, what we aim to do is to, when something is presented to us and we believe it could be a benefit, we also look for support from other charities. So for instance, a recent project was co-funded by the NKF, and it makes it good reason for more than one charity to put their money where their mouth is. I would also say that within our objectives, promoting and funding scientific research into kidney diseases and disseminating the useful results of research for public benefit. is for us to always consider, and we can also consider, when appropriate, sponsoring relevant research. So I think that this person's questions have been answered, and COVID has really been the controller of everything that we've been able to do over the last couple of years.